For more on today's big stories, I'm joined by the National Editor for The Australian, Dennis Shanahan. Dennis, welcome. Let's start with the latest Resolve Political Monitor figures out in the 9 papers today, which shows that the Labor government is essentially in free fall. The budget has failed to really help Anthony Albanese gain any ground, certainly in this poll, and we know that the news poll has showed them pretty much on track with where they were at the last election. The Resolve poll only measures primary votes, but the coalition remains steady on 36%. But Labor's tumbled to 28%, which is the lowest primary since Resolve started doing polling for the 9 papers after the 2019 election. Dennis, if they're having a look at this today, I dare say they'd be slightly worried.
Very worried. And it's not just the Resolve poll. What we've seen over the last couple of weeks, we've seen News poll, Resolve, we saw Freshwater in the Financial Review today, and they are all showing the same thing. There is a unanimous view coming out of the polls. Labor's support is either just holding or going down. The coalition's support is going up or holding. And more importantly, Anthony Albanese continues to be on a slide, while simultaneously Peter Dutton, as preferred Prime Minister, the first time in this Resolve poll, actually in front of Anthony Albanese as preferred Prime Minister. What we're seeing is a relentless, it is small but relentless movement. It is moving in the coalition's favour. And what we're seeing is Anthony Albanese losing approval as Prime Minister. But the third thing, the most important thing of all, is that on issues, particularly cost of living, economic management, housing costs, and climate and the environment, Labor is in big trouble. Because, and look, you can never say one thing happened the week before a poll and that influenced the polls. But last week, Peter Dutton went out there and said he would challenge Labor's commitment to the 2030 emissions targets, and what he would do would put the cost of living, households and families first. It's very hard to say that hasn't had an immediate impact on the polls to the coalition's benefit, and particularly to Peter Dutton. I think Labor would look at all of these polls, see real trouble and no easy solution as Peter Dutton adopts a much more aggressive attitude on policy and conflating climate change targets in Paris with the cost of living in Parramatta.
And it seems to be working. And it's interesting when you break down the results by gender, the coalition is in front with both male and female voters, and you have to wonder whether Dutton is watching those numbers, because the coalition is now investigating policies to make it easier for female entrepreneurs to access capital and encourage women to take more control of household finances, and this is being spearheaded by the opposition finance spokeswoman Jane Hume, who also wants to improve the financial literacy of women. But I suspect, Dennis, that it might be an entire generation that needs their financial literacy improved, not just women.
Indeed. And look, one of the keys here is that Jane Hume is looking at small business operators. She makes the point that 1 in 3 small business operators are women. And the small business community is one of the heartlands of the Liberal Party. It is one of the main targets of Peter Dutton. And so there is a complete complementarity here between trying to appeal to entrepreneurial women and the small business vote. I think that the Liberals have to be careful they don't draw too much attention away from the strategic position of cost of living, but this would seem to be another winner for the coalition.
Well, and we're talking about winners for the coalition. I think there's probably an attitude at the moment that we'll let the government sort of go on all this NDIS stuff. We won't ride them too hard because we want them to where what is going on in terms of all this rorting. And I mean, pretty much every single day you have another report of rorting out of the NDIS. There was another one today, the Daily Telegraph, reporting that Dungeons and Dragons gaming nights and supposedly Lego-based therapies are some services that are being advertised on an online marketplace for NDIS participants to spend their taxpayer funds on. And these pages reportedly have no official affiliation to the program. They're not officially registered, most of them, but they offer luxury accommodation, ski trips, excursions to the movies and all sorts of stuff like this covered by the NDIS. And we're talking about $160 an hour for quote-unquote Lego therapy, as if this couldn't get any worse.
Well, Caleb, I'm glad you asked me about this because it makes me very angry. And not angry about what you may think. It's not that people are spending $160 on a Lego camp or Dungeons and Dragons. What angers me is that Bill Shorten, as minister who put this scheme together, and then as the opposition spokesman, said the real problem with the NDIS was corruption, that it was the way that people were misusing the system, the people who were making money out of the NDIS, and then he pledged to fix all of that in opposition. Well, clearly in government, he's not doing that, but the more important point, and this is what makes me angry, is that he has not addressed the heart of the issue of the problem with the NDIS. The NDIS is going to cripple the economy. It is going to overtake the budget. It is already more spending than Medicare. And the reason is not because of Lego camps or Dungeons and Dragons and Dungeons and Dungeons and Dragons. It's because the government will not address the core funding problem of the NDIS, and that is it is supplying assistance to people it was never meant to address. They are pouring billions into giving people support that were never intended to have the support. Of course, it is too hard a decision to say, oh, you're getting this support, but we're going to take it off you to make the real changes to the NDIS. And so what we're seeing is Bill Shorten being bitten on the bum by his own corruption allegations about the NDIS and not addressing the real problem. There, I feel better now.
I'm glad, Dennis. And look, to be perfectly honest, I think there are a few politicians that you and I and the viewers at home wouldn't mind locking in a dungeon with a dragon right now. Dennis, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thanks, Caleb.